This video is way harder than I thought it would be. Right off the jump, right from the door with the e-begging. If you're watching this, leave a like. I'm stressed. Today, we will be trying our best to make every single Dragon Ball movie canon. The original 3 Dragon Ball movies, the original 13 DBZ movies, and Path to Power as well. Basically everything before the Renaissance, you know, when they made everything canon. It's gonna work the same way as my Naruto video. If you haven't watched that, check that out when you get the chance. And with that being said, I don't wanna waste any more of your time. I know your attention span is cooked. Mine is too. Let's just get started. Alright, getting my pleas out the way early. I promise I won't do this for every single one. These first 3 Dragon Ball movies, they can only really exist in their own timeline. They're quite literally just alternative versions of the main story. Same characters, same exact story beats. This movie is basically just a retelling of the Emperor Pilaf saga, but without Emperor Pilaf. Tragic. Lucky for me though, the Android saga completely jacked up the Dragon Ball timeline to the point where we have now at least 3 different timelines that could be considered the original timeline, right? Let me explain. First, of course, you got the main timeline where the entire story happens from beginning to end. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then you have Trunks' timeline, which is technically the original timeline because Goku was originally supposed to die from the heart virus. My parents always taught me about KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So, that being said, I don't see why we can't just consider this movie and this whole trilogy of movies as just the beginning of Dragon Ball in Trunks' timeline, right? Like, this is the Emperor Pilaf saga in Trunks' timeline. I don't see why not. Again, we get all the same story beats. We still meet Oolong and Roshi and Yamcha, just like how it happens in the manga. It's just, you know, with a slightly different context. Instead of Pilaf and his crew stealing the Dragon Balls from Goku and Bulma and the rest of them, it's instead some evil king's royal navy that ambushes everyone at Kame House when they meet Roshi for the first time. Instead of fighting against Pilaf, our crew finds themselves accidentally liberating an entire nation from the tyranny of this evil king in the process of getting the Dragon Balls back. Shout out to the original Pansy, by the way. Again, everything proceeds for the most part how it does in the original. I feel like the only thing that kind of gets ruined here is that Oolong wouldn't get his wish, right? No panties for him. Continuing on with Trunks' timeline's version of the beginning of Dragon Ball, we have the direct sequel to the previous movie. Another retelling, this time of Goku and Krillin training with Roshi before the 21st tournament. If anything, this movie kind of just helps bring the first movie closer to the source material. Like, cause there was a couple things that the first movie missed, like the first Ozaru transformation. Goku wasn't supposed to have his tail when he goes to train with Roshi, right? But it's okay. It happens in this movie instead. And of course, it ends the same exact way with Puar turning into scissors to cut Goku's tail off. So again, this is fine. We are still on track. This is all supposed to be happening at like the very beginning of the training anyway. Like they haven't even found launch yet. That's kind of what this whole movie is about. So yeah, there should still be plenty of time for Goku's tail to grow back in time for, you know, when he fights Roshi in the tournament finals. However, in this timeline, the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament wouldn't even happen because instead, we have this totally separate tournament in this country ruled by the Crane School for some reason, where the winner receives one wish to be granted by Emperor Chaozu. Yes, you heard me right. A direct sequel to the previous movie, just like the last one. This movie literally begins with one of those classic 80s training montage, right? Goku and Krillin training under Roshi during the opening credits. So again, if that doesn't tell you that these movies are all connected, I don't know what to say. What's crazy is that these movies don't really affect the long-term story. Again, we get the same story beats, just in a slightly different order. For example, this is essentially just the 21st tournament arc and the Red Ribbon Army arc kind of mashed together. At the end of this movie, we arrive at the same exact endpoint that we do at the end of the Red Ribbon Army saga, reviving Bora with the Dragon Balls. Tao is in this movie. He doesn't seem to be working with the Red Ribbon Army at all. That could mess things up a bit, but I mean, not really, because they do use the Dragon Balls in this movie. Goku would still absolutely want to still look for Grandpa Gohan's, you know, the 4-star ball that he gave him. This could be how he ends up getting involved with the Red Ribbon Army, a completely separate, you know, thing, still probably happening off in the world. But of course, in this universe, they don't He just wouldn't meet them as early. And then Fortune Teller Baba too, because the Dragon Radar can still end up breaking like it does in the original story. Goku's first World Martial Arts Tournament would just end up being the 22nd instead of the 21st. Because in this universe, Roshi clearly opted out of taking his boys to the Tenkaichi Budokai. Again, doesn't really change anything. Him and Roshi could still have some sort of separate fight, Roshi undercover. Like, that could all still happen, just not in the tournament finals. For the most part, it doesn't really change anything. Master Shen and Tao have this whole scheme in the movie of overthrowing and killing Chaozu and stuff, which gets exposed, which is when Tien then packs him up with a tri-beam, which kind of ruins the next arc because Shen is supposed to be there. But honestly, like, is Shen really all that necessary? I mean, we might lose out all those interactions between him and Roshi being rivals and stuff. But as for Tien and Chaozu, like, they can still play a very similar role. Still carrying on the pride of the Crane School, right? Just without the nefarious old man doing all these backstage shenanigans trying to, rig the tournament in favor of the Crane School. If you take him out the arc, it doesn't really change the outcome of the tournament. Tien still wanted to have a fair and square match against Goku in the finals. And then from here, the story can just proceed as it normally would, all the way up until Goku dies from the heart virus, because remember, this is all taking place in future Trunks' timeline. It's time for a Did You Know segment from Charisma. Did you know that this is actually one of the only DBZ movies to be officially recognized as canon? It actually has a spot on the official Dragon Ball timeline in the official Dragon Ball Encyclopedia, the Daizenshu. This movie takes place during a 5-year time skip between the end of the 23rd tournament and the beginning of DBZ, specifically age 761. The same year that Raditz pulls up to Earth, which explains why Gohan is in this movie, and also looks around the same age that he was during the Saiyan arc. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Goku and Piccolo never outright agreed to team up in this movie. They kind of just end up fighting together by happenstance. So this movie doesn't ruin their interaction at Kame House. If anything, it kind of just helps us understand more of why Piccolo made the decision to approach Goku in the first place. Not only did obviously Raditz's strength necessitate this team up, but by this point, Piccolo would have already witnessed firsthand what a tandem effort alongside Goku is truly capable of accomplishing. It's just that unlike in the Dead Zone movie, this time they're making it official. All right, back again. This and the next two movies, they can only really exist on a one of those what if timelines. Goku uses both Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb in all of these movies, which means that at some point he had to have died and trained with King Kai. However, it's quite frankly impossible for the battle with Vegeta to have happened because, well, Goku would have been in the hospital. By the time he gets out of the hospital, Gohan and Krillin and Bulma would have already been on Namek, yet they're in this movie. So what does that mean? It tells me that this movie can only really take place in a what if post Saiyan Saga period where they do not go to Namek. What does this mean for everybody that died fighting against Nappa? I don't know. We don't see them in this movie anyway. You could just kind of put that to the side for now. As for Piccolo though, because Piccolo's in this movie, let's just say that the whole what if branch timeline begins at Piccolo's sacrifice. Like some Sparking Zero shit. Like, what if Piccolo doesn't need to sacrifice himself? What if Gohan actually fucking dodged? Not only would that keep Piccolo alive and keep the Dragon Balls around, which get used at the beginning of this movie, but then maybe the battle with Vegeta actually can happen, and Piccolo can help Goku defeat him and make it so that Goku doesn't have to go to the hospital afterwards. Maybe Piccolo just tanks the blast. Maybe then Kami could heal Goku so he wouldn't have to spend so long in the hospital. The possibilities are truly endless if Gohan just... What does this then mean for the relationship with Vegeta and, the Super Saiyan thing? Because they don't go to Namek. I don't know. I don't got all the answers.
You ain't got the answers, Sway!
Alright, part 2 of this what if timeline where Gohan actually dodged. This movie makes my head hurt. Yamcha, Chaozu, and Tien being in this movie is so confusing because they should all be dead. And once again, this Namek trip absolutely must not happen because we can't afford Goku to, accidentally go Super Saiyan or something like that. The way my brain is kind of thinking right now, I'm thinking like, okay, well, since Piccolo didn't have to die saving Gohan in this timeline, Kami is still alive, which also means that the Dragon Balls are still around and functional. obviously. Problem is though, is that now it's like how much time has passed, right? According to the rules of the Dragon Balls before Dende, people can only be revived if they died less than a year ago. At the beginning of the World's Strongest movie, the Dragon Balls are used to thaw out Dr. Wheelo, which means that they would have been turned to stone for a year, and this already takes place somewhere vaguely after the Saiyan saga. Long story short, what I'm saying is they would have ran out of time. Maybe Tien and Yamcha and Chaozu were brought back before the World's Strongest. That would mean that that movie would have to take place at least 2 years following the Saiyans, 1 year for reviving Goku, and then another year for reviving the rest, which of course means that this movie, The Tree of Might, would then have to take place a whole year after Wheelo as well, because once again, they use the Dragon Balls in this movie. So that would mean Tree of Might will be taking place 3 whole years after the Saiyans, which I feel like is a bit unrealistic. Just for how Gohan is portrayed in this movie still, right? Like really young. This is clearly pre-Namek, like space adventure maturation phase Gohan, right? Honestly, now I'm thinking about it, at the beginning of the World's Strongest, Gohan and the rest of them were looking for the Dragon Balls. I kind of like the idea of Dr. Cochin in that movie, kind of getting in the way of that, thwarting their plans. Now I'm just kind of going back and talking about the previous movie. This is about the Tree of Might. I mean, I could just say that World's Strongest and the Tree of Might both take place immediately following the Saiyans and are kind of just 2 different branching paths, right? Wheelo and Turles don't have to exist in the same timeline. If we really want to make this work chronologically with the World's Strongest, I'm just going to throw out there, knowing everything that we know now about a few, let's just say, liberties that can be taken with the Dragon Balls, thanks to Diamond and Super, maybe there's some way to shorten the cooldown time that, you know, we never really got a chance to explore because Kami was dead for a lot of the Namek arc, and then, you know, not too long after that, he kind of just fused with Piccolo. I could also simply take the easy way out and just say that, you know, this all takes place in a timeline where, you know, the Saiyans don't show up. Nappa and Vegeta die colliding with an asteroid or something, and they end up suffocating in space because their pod got destroyed. I could always just say that. We still got like 10 movies left. And for the final installation, or I guess should I say variation of this whole what if Gohan actually dodged timeline, we have a movie that's nowhere near as problematic as the Tree of Might because there's no Yamcha or Chaozu or Tien showing up and confusing things. If we want to make this movie fit chronologically with the previous ones, no matter how you slice it, this movie has to take place at least a year from the previous movie because Shenron is summoned once again to give Slug his youth back. You know, wannabe King Piccolo. Taking the last 2 movies into consideration, bare minimum, the Slug movie would have to happen 4 years after the Saiyan saga, which is a little bit encroaching onto, you know, Android saga, heart virus territory. Androids show up 5 years after the Saiyans, 3 years after Namek. I think Goku dies like the year prior. But as we all know, a lot can happen in a year. Hey, 4 years of nonstop training because you know he wouldn't stop. It could explain how Goku achieves the false Super Saiyan form in this movie. This could totally put him at that threshold of power. He doesn't do any of the gravity training or any of the really big Zenkai boosts that he gets fighting on Namek. But again, that's why it's not a full transformation, right? And then of course, like not too long after this, he can, you know, get sick and die with the heart virus. Tragic. Even if he didn't die, he would be severely underpowered by the time the androids got to him. And you know, now I'm thinking about it, Trunks wouldn't even exist in this timeline anyway, because you know we don't go to Namek and befriend Vegeta, right? Damn. Gohan will be all by himself. Hey, maybe in this timeline he's the first one to go Super Saiyan. Nah, honestly, I kind of want to see an OVA now of if Gohan had to fight the androids by himself. Back to the easy shit. This is another one that I think is officially considered canon by the Daizenshu. Doesn't really have any inconsistencies that challenges this. This takes place literally at any point during the 3-year time skip, the training period after Trunks gives Goku the antidote. Makes sense that Vegeta's not here because around this time he will be off somewhere in space, gravity training, throwing temper tantrums and stuff. Well, that didn't last long. This movie is infamous for how much it doesn't make sense in the timeline. Biggest reason why is because Dende is the guardian of Earth in this movie, and the whole thing takes place on the new planet Namek. Two major developments that don't end up happening until the week before the Cell games in the story. 7 whole months in real time before it happens in the manga, and 11 months before the anime. Damn near a whole year. It was a huge spoiler. Goku and Gohan should have already trained in the hyperbolic time chamber by this point. So why is Gohan still a kid? That tells me that in this movie, they don't go into the time chamber. In fact, nobody would have been in the time chamber yet. If that was the case, then not only would Vegeta be stronger than Goku in this movie, and we would see grade 3 Super Vegeta and all that, but Trunks will be here as well. And where's he at? Now that I'm thinking about it, Piccolo should actually be the strongest out of all of them in this movie, because he should already be fused with Kami by this point, since Dende is the new guardian of Earth. This movie makes absolutely no sense, but I'm gonna find a way to make it work, because I am a man of the people. Where do I even begin? What if Piccolo just kills Cell? Just throwing that out there. Now I know what you're thinking. What about the androids? What if Krillin just killed Zero before he entered the lab and, did his job? You have the Kienzan, man. Why are you folded? Or better yet, what if Piccolo kills Zero before he can even reach his lab? Because they do fight. Piccolo was getting ready to pack him up, but then that's when Bulma and Trunks and Yajirobe came in and messed up everything. How about in this timeline, Piccolo just doesn't get distracted and one-shots him? Then 16, 17, and 18 never get awakened. That's the androids taken care of. Now we just gotta worry about Cell. How do we get around this? Piccolo still probably decides to fuse with Kami. That's the whole reason why he did fuse with Kami. And then they could just jump him, right? Just gang up on him and take him out. It's not like he could absorb 17 and 18. He doesn't know where the androids are. And even if he does, the lab would have already been destroyed. Would Cell know where Jiro's lab is? I feel like I'm starting to talk myself out of it now. This is the only world where I can see this movie happening. A world where the androids are already taken care of, Cell is already taken care of, Kami being fused with Piccolo gives him a reason to have to look for a new guardian of Earth. It's just kind of moved up the timeline a little bit. The hyperbolic time chamber wouldn't be necessary anymore because Cell is already defeated. And then Trunks probably would have just went home because, there's nothing really left for him to do anymore. I don't really know what this means for his timeline because he wouldn't get any of that training from the time chamber. But Trunks could always come back, I guess. Maybe he never even went home. Maybe he just stayed back on Earth with Bulma and had like mother-son bonding time while everyone else was off doing this other side quest. That's so adorable. Honestly, I can really get on board with this timeline where Piccolo is the main character. Going back to the movie now, I guess the only reason why he never helps Goku and Vegeta fight Cooler in this movie, despite being the current strongest warrior, is because he's busy focusing all of his efforts on destroying the Big Getty Star instead. Hey, no matter how you slice it, no matter what timeline this movie takes place in, Piccolo's roles in these movies are underrated. This one is a little bit better, still kind of hard, but a lot easier to wrap my head around because, well, first, Dende is nowhere to be found. And secondly, because we actually get a flashback in this movie of Android 17 killing Dr. Zero, giving us an exact point in the timeline where this is meant to take place. I say exact, but not really. There's still a couple red flags in this movie. First of all, we got to address what happens to 16, 17, and 18 because they're already awake. There was plenty of downtime around this time in the actual story with everyone still kind of recovering from the androids awakening and stuff, getting bullied by 18. It could make sense if they were still traveling the world looking for Goku, but then that wouldn't make sense because Goku should still be in a coma. He would have no time to do this movie because immediately as soon as he wakes up, he, of course, teleports to wherever Vegeta was and Trunks was, and then they immediately go into the time chamber. It also can't happen while he's waiting for his turn in the time chamber because, well, Vegeta and Trunks are in this movie. One route we could go is if Piccolo, after fusing with Kami, once again has this main character moment, somehow taking out all 3 of the androids before Goku wakes up. But this is a little bit unrealistic just because, even after the massive power up, Piccolo was still only like just about even with 17 when they fought. And even then he still had a disadvantage because of the whole infinite stamina thing. Assuming that he could defeat him plus 16 and 18 as well. Yeah, no. To me, the only way this movie can work is in a timeline where Cell doesn't show up. Maybe this is the alternate timeline where Trunks kills Cell before he can steal his time machine. Maybe Zero never conceives Cell at all. Either way, if Cell never shows up, Not only does it give the Z Fighters plenty of time to figure out some way to deal with the androids, maybe Piccolo and Kami still fuse just for the sake of the power-up, and then we got a Super Namekian and like, what, 3 Super Saiyans all fighting against the androids? I feel like they could do it. They still can't use the time chamber because Trunks and Gohan will be aged up in this movie if they did. But again, if they just all work together, I don't feel like they need the time chamber. This movie could easily happen in the week or so following the defeat of the android, right before Trunks is about to go back home, kind of just hanging out, going on lunch dates and shit. Maybe Android 13 replaces Cell in this timeline. I mean, they do have some similarities. I still don't know what this means for Trunks going back to his timeline. I mean, he can still train with Vegeta or Goku before he goes back, I guess. The popular theory for this movie for years has always been that it takes place during that 10-day rest period before the start of the Cell games. It's definitely post-time chamber because Gohan is a Super Saiyan here, and we also have peak future Trunks hair. If you want to go with that, that's cool, but honestly, to me, I've always thought that this was way too big of a conflict to merely just be some sort of warm-up for the Cell games, right? Don't even start with me with the perfect Cell versus Broly debate. Like, I know a lot can happen in a short period of time. Just look at Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Daima. But come on, man. What if Vegeta or Krillin actually did their job in the Android arc and kept Cell from achieving his perfect form? Even if you gotta blow up 18, it's okay, Krillin. You can still get married. You can just wish her back with the Dragon Balls and blame it all on Vegeta. And then, because the Cell games won't be happening, this movie can be instead where Goku and Gohan get to show their gains from the time chamber. I mean, it would explain why they're just having this random picnic at the beginning of the movie in celebration for defeating Cell, right? It would also explain why Goku and Chi-Chi have enough spare time to try and get Gohan into this prestigious preparatory school. During that 10-day period before the Cell games, that whole time was meant to be purely for just resting. Gohan can still get Super Saiyan 2 eventually. In fact, it would have been much better if he did it in this movie, but I'll just leave that alone for now. The only major thing that I guess changes will be that Goku wouldn't die in this timeline. So we will basically be trading Super Saiyan 3 for Broly. I think I'm okay with that. This movie obviously takes place during the 7-year time skip between the end of the Cell arc and the start of the Buu arc. Goku's dead in this movie. Gohan has access to Super Saiyan 2. Bojack Seal only came undone in this movie because King Kai's planet was destroyed. Specifically, not too long after Cell's defeat, because Goku and King Kai are shown still clearly traveling down Snake Way in this movie. This would have to happen before they reach the check-in station, which is where they then get invited to the Otherworld tournament. Now, at the end of the Cell arc, Trunks did leave like the very next day to go back to the future and finally defeat the androids in his timeline. But in the manga, we can clearly see that he's planning to go back to the past once again to spread the good news, which is when Cell attacks, right? Even though time passes in Trunks' time, it might have only been like the next day or so in the present time when he came back to visit them, which is when the events of this movie can take place. I feel like this movie has to happen after Vegeta's final explosion because it would be the only explanation as to why he doesn't show up here. Ain't no way Vegeta's ignoring Broly's presence. But then if that was the case, then Goku would still be here because he wouldn't need to use Super Saiyan 3 and burn up all his time. This movie is also clearly meant to be a direct sequel to movie 8, so according to my logic, that then gets problematic because, well, in this timeline, Goku doesn't get blown up by Cell in the first place. Maybe this is the timeline where Broly actually does happen in the 10 days before the Cell games, and everything still happens as it does up until the Buu arc, but then Babidi ends up resealing Buu before he can punch his face off. I think we might be onto something. What if Babidi just did the spell real quick before Buu, you know, yoked him up and shit? It's probably just a couple of words. I'm sure it's like a real quick thing. Vegeta would have been dead and Goku would have already went back to Otherworld. Once Goku returns to Otherworld, he can let Gohan know that Buu is already taken care of, and knowing Gohan's personality, will probably look at his Z-Sword training and just completely chalk it and just go back to his normal life. Then, after the 4-month wait from Bulma accidentally using the Dragon Balls in the Buu arc to revive the people Vegeta killed, Goten, Trunks, and Videl can then go looking for the Dragon Balls once again to revive Vegeta, which is how we get to this movie. This would also serve to explain why Goten and Trunks don't know fusion in this movie, because Goku left before he could teach them. But it's okay because Buu was dead anyway. It's another what if timeline. I'm sorry, but let's be real. In 2025, the Dragon Ball timeline is basically SpongeBob's brain that one time when he threw out his own name. The only thing left that still doesn't quite make sense about this movie is the fact that Piccolo doesn't show up. Oh, yo. now I'm thinking about it. And especially because he never finishes his training on the Kai's planet. We all know how he feels about Gohan being able to defend the Earth when Goku and Vegeta are gone. I could totally see Piccolo treating this whole thing as just training. So yeah. He purposefully abstained from the fight against Broly, not because he was ducking the fade, but as a means of prepping Gohan for being the defender of the Earth. Yeah, let's go with that. This one is a lot easier because it's just a direct sequel to Broly's Second Coming. Probably like not too long afterwards even. Goku and Vegeta are still dead. Maybe they had to wait another 4 months or so to try and revive Vegeta because Shenron did technically grant a wish in the last movie, even though that doesn't make any sense, but that's a different video for a different day. Goten and Trunks still wouldn't know fusion because Goku's been dead. And that one little side plot of Android 18 trying to get her money from Satan for throwing the tournament finals, that would also make sense because, again, everything in the Buu arc happens normally up until the point where Buu kills Babidi. Why isn't Gohan in this movie? I don't know. Maybe Piccolo is training Goten and Trunks too. Hey, you can't tell me that this isn't something he would totally do. Plus, you know, if things go south, 18 is right there anyway. She's at least as strong as Piccolo. Probably even SSJ Gohan, depending on how much weaker he's truly gotten over the time skip. At first, I wanted to say that this movie was a sequel to Bio Broly, you know, just to complete that trilogy. The problem with that is that Goten and Trunks know fusion, so unfortunately, we can't continue with the whole Buu getting resealed timeline because Goku has to teach the boys how to fuse. With that being said, I mean, this got to be the timeline where Gotenks actually locks in and kills Buu, right? Before he defuses this time. Maybe Gohan finishes his training, maybe he doesn't. He never releases any of his aura in this movie, so there's kind of really no way to tell. We'll leave it up for interpretation. This, Cooler's Revenge, and Bojack Unbound gotta be the easiest movies to canonize because they all take place after big battles during time skips. Everyone is present in this movie, which tells me that this has to happen after the battle with Buu. Goten and Trunks are fusing, Gohan is in his ultimate form, and both Vegeta and Goku are alive and well. The only slight issue with this movie nowadays, though, is where does this take place in relation to Dragon Ball Daima? Because, you know, Super Saiyan 4 and all that. Daima takes place 1 year after Buu is defeated. Plenty of time for this evil warlock from some faraway planet to show up on Earth trying to awaken this ancient demon. Looking back on it now, this movie serves as a great teaser, actually, for magic and the entire demon world. There's demon arts all over this movie. It's aged really well, and this movie was already one of my favorites when I was a kid before Daima or Super even existed. No movie before the Renaissance. Just like all the other OG Dragon Ball movies for some reason, it's another retelling. Basically combining the Pilaf arc and the Red Ribbon Army arc into one giant 80-minute movie to celebrate 10 years of the Dragon Ball anime at the time. And now we're approaching the 40-year anniversary. Yes, we have 3 different versions of Goku meeting Bulma. 4 if you count the manga. I've always thought this was a GT movie. Goku is literally wearing his GT gi in this movie. All the people that worked on GT clearly worked on this. Everybody's always yapping about how GT should take place in its own separate timeline now that Super is a thing. So I don't see a reason as to why this can't be how Dragon Ball starts in the GT timeline. You get me? There's a few complications with combining these 2 arcs. For example, this movie skips over the 21st tournament arc entirely, which means no Krillin or Launch. General Tao is also omitted from this, which means Goku never meets Upa or Bora or drinks the divine water. Nobody liked that Deus Ex Machina bullshit anyway. Upa does show up in GT. Goku could always meet him another way on some different adventure, right? He's always looking for the 4-star ball. As for Korin, because, you know, Roshi could theoretically at any point send Goku to climb the tower for training, though, just like he did way back when. And then the 21st tournament can just happen after this movie. They don't exactly tell us what year this movie takes place. Krillin can always just pull up after this, and then he and Goku can go train. And yeah. And then from here, the rest of the story can happen as it does in the original story all the way up until GT. At the end, Goku wears an adult-sized version of the same exact gi he wore as a kid. Everything comes full circle. We love to see it. Let me know what ideas you guys have for these movies. Let me know how wrong I was. See y'all in the next one.
If it's me, I apologize. I'm just high. So sometimes I'll just emphasize I'm just shy, so I really need to emphasize. After this performance, check my vitals, make sure that I'm still alive, 'cause I give it